So, the backstory here is that I, 28F, and my husband Jason, 29M, met 6 years ago and got married about 3 years back. We also have a 1-year-old daughter together. We met because of my brother, who's good friends with Jason because of their line of work. Jason used to be a cop and my brother runs the pizza place which he used to frequently visit. They struck up a friendship in 1 year. My brother brought Jason back home for Thanksgiving. That's how we met for the first time, and soon after, I asked him out and we started dating. After being together for 3 years, he proposed and we got married. I'd met his family quite a few times before marriage and most of them had always been very warm to me, with the exception of my sister-in-law Janice, 27F. Even my mother-in-law was pretty nice to me, but she wasn't, for whatever reason. Jason kept telling me that she would come around eventually, but she never did. She never showed her dislike for me outright and in front of other people either, and kept things subtle. Backhanded compliments, insults disgusted as jokes and stuff, you know, the usual. Initially, it would really get on my nerves, but after a while, I learned to ignore it. Because it didn't make sense to give her the satisfaction of letting her get under my skin. She never said anything in front of Jason, probably because she didn't want to take that risk and turn him against her. But he knew about my equation with his sister and made sure that I was not left alone with her whenever we visited his family. I didn't want him to cut his family off, or even cut his sister off. Because it just wasn't worth it to go to so much trouble, all because of a few mean jokes and insults or whatever. So we just dealt with the situation by not dealing with it and letting her say whatever she wanted to, while I tried my best to just ignore it. That's what Jason did as well. It wasn't ideal, but we didn't have much of a choice, so we just had to suck it up and let her continue with her stupid and weird behavior when it came to me. Since we wanted to maintain the peace of the family. Thinking back on it, I really wish I'd said something and nipped this in the bud instead of being all self-conscious and being afraid to speak up for myself. I just didn't want to be labeled as that woman who gets mad at every little thing and breaks up families. And that's why I stayed quiet for a long time, but I just couldn't anymore, after what happened recently. Jason was a cop, but he quit the force a few months ago because he wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. So I'm a working mother and I don't have an easy job. I'm a trauma surgeon. We have a daughter and we were really struggling with how to make this work-life balance arrangement work. Of course, both of us have high-pressure jobs and couldn't exactly afford to spend much time at home. We did have the daycare and our parents would take care of our daughter whenever we needed them to, but it wasn't good enough for us. We were missing out on spending time with her and it felt like she was going to grow up without her parents around much if we went on that way. So about a year ago, Jason and I had a serious conversation about this and he told me that he was going to quit the force to spend more time with our daughter at home. I didn't force him into making that decision, but he decided it for himself because I made more money than him and he believed that it was only fair that he quit his job, so our daughter would have at least one of us around for most of the day. I asked him if he was sure about that, probably thousands of times, before I was finally convinced that he actually wanted to go through with this and become a full-time dad. It was a huge step to take and I knew how much my husband enjoyed being a cop, so I wanted to make sure that he wouldn't resent me for this. But I don't think he would, because he seems more than happy to spend his days taking care of the household and our daughter. The last time we spoke about this was just a few weeks back and he told me that initially, he had found it a little difficult to adjust to being a stay-at-home dad after working for so many years. But with time, it became easier for him because he could spend time with our daughter. He seems quite content with his life and how everything has turned out for him. He doesn't seem to have any complaints because he says that his dream job used to be being a cop, but now, it's being a father. And that's pretty beautiful. His family, however, doesn't see any beauty in the situation, and I should have seen it coming because his family is pretty traditional. They do allow women to work and most of the women in his family are working women. But the catch is that they don't allow their men to work at home. None of the men in my husband's family even touch the household chores because they consider it beneath their dignity. So eventually, the women in their families end up doing the household work along with their jobs, or they are forced to quit their jobs, like my mother-in-law. The crazy part is that they don't even see anything wrong with this arrangement and think that it's completely fine. Jason and I have discussed this in person and both of us agree that it's a ridiculous school of thought. But we never spoke about it with his family because they would just come out with some stupid arguments to cover up the misogyny and we didn't want to get into that. If they were happy living their life that way, then who are we to judge them for it? Thankfully, Jason and I always split everything equally and sometimes he would even do more of the household work than me, in case I ended up working late. And now of course he's doing everything at home and holding down the fort there while I bring home the money. To us, it doesn't really matter who does what, as long as we're all happy and healthy and there's food on the table. His parents and sister, however, strongly disagree with this and are very upset with Jason's decision to quit the force and stay at home with our daughter. They think that it makes him less of a man or whatever and have been arguing with him for months about it. I tried to intervene at first, but his parents made it very clear that my interference would only make their relationship worse. Jason didn't want me to come to his defense either because he didn't want to involve me in this mess, so I stayed out of their way. It took them a while, but they did come around to our new arrangement and haven't brought it up for quite a few months. It also probably helped that they had new things to think about, like Janice getting married. Her boyfriend of 2 years, Harry, 27M, proposed to her, and after that, everybody pretty much forgot about Jason because this was a much bigger deal. We were thankful that they chose to get engaged around that time because it really helped to take the heat off of us. For a few months, nobody from his family brought up Jason's decision to quit the force and tried to fight him on it. We were quite relieved because we thought that this had finally blown over and we wouldn't have to hear about a man's role in his family ever again. But then Janice held her rehearsal dinner yesterday, and that's where this came up again, so I had a bit of an outburst. Janice is getting married in 1 day, so this is a bit of an emergency and we need to figure out what we want to do about this really quickly. This is time sensitive, so we would appreciate a fast response to this post. So while we were at dinner, Jason and I were sitting opposite Janice and Harry. Their parents and a couple of other family members were also sitting around us and we were all having a normal, fun chat. Nothing too controversial, and I was relieved that we were finally getting along with his family like before. It was a big deal, especially after how upset everybody had been when Jason quit the force. I didn't think this would happen again. But then, Janice decided to go off topic and started asking me how my work was going. I felt uncomfortable, but I had to answer the question because it was a very normal and innocent question in itself, but I knew where she was about to take it. I told her that my work was great and left it at that, hoping that she would take the hint and not drag this out. But then she asked Jason how his work was going and cracked a joke about how his job finally allows him to take time off without worrying about anything because now his life is just a long vacation since he is living off of my income. She didn't stop there and went on to say that at least now, it's clear to everybody who wears the pants in our family. She cracked a few more jokes that were pretty below the belt and kept making fun of Jason while he quietly tried to ignore it and smile through it all, trying to take it like a sport. But I couldn't handle it and I just lost control. It was probably years of her getting on my nerves and months of having to deal with Jason's family and their annoying beliefs. Something in me just snapped and I decided to bring up something that nobody wanted to hear. I told her that she could crack as many jokes as she wanted to, but Jason was still a better man, and an overall better human being than everybody in their family combined. I told her that she really had some audacity to make fun of Jason, considering the fact that she wouldn't even have been able to go to college, had it not been for him, and never met Harry if Jason didn't choose to give money to his parents to help them out ever since he was 18. Nobody likes talking about it because it was a very dark period in their lives, but Jason's father had lost his job back when Jason was still in high school. Janice was too spoiled and oblivious to even notice the problems in her family, and her parents and Jason decided that they would do their best to make sure that she doesn't find out about it either. So they never said no to anything that she wanted, even while they were struggling, to make sure she didn't end up worrying about their finances. Jason had to take up 2 jobs to be able to support his family back then, while his father continued to search for a job with decent pay. They didn't have to suffer for more than a year, and until then, they had Jason to support them and some savings to sustain them. Janice never found out about it because her family didn't let her know, and she was oblivious to everything that happened back then, until I brought it up at the rehearsal dinner. She was shocked, and so was everybody else, because this was a huge secret and nobody was supposed to talk about it because they didn't want her to find out. But after almost a decade I had finally brought this up, and now she knew exactly how much she owed to her brother, so she had no business making fun of him and trying to put him down like she was at the time. Everybody else might be too great to tell her the truth, especially Jason, so she would finally be grateful to him, but I wasn't above it. After I said that, there was just silence all around the table, and after a minute or so Jason and I excused ourselves and headed out. We walked back to our hotel room in silence, and even after we got there, we didn't discuss what happened at that dinner. I knew that this was going to become a huge deal, and so did he. But not discussing it further was his way of letting me know that he didn't think I did anything wrong, and so there was no need for a discussion. And it did become a huge deal because when I woke up the next morning, it was to the sound of knocking on our door because Jason's parents were out there and wanted to speak to me, first thing in the morning. Jason let them in, and once we were all seated, they got to the point and told me that the family wanted me to apologize to Janice because what I said at the dinner was something that they had kept from her for a really long time. And they didn't think that it was appropriate for me to bring it up since it wasn't my place to say that to her, and it ruined the vibe of the evening. Because now Janice was miserable and couldn't stop crying, and it was all my fault. They also said that Janice was just joking and messing around with Jason like siblings usually do, so I had no reason to get so defensive and blurt out such a huge secret, knowing what it would mean for their family. Now Janice felt extremely guilty and kept saying that she had been a burden on the family for so long and wasn't even aware of it. They told me that she was miserable and kept apologizing to her parents. She was having a total meltdown, and this is exactly why they didn't want her to ever get to know the truth about what had happened all those years ago. They believed that she was an emotionally fragile girl and wouldn't be able to handle the truth, and I suppose there's some truth to it if she's acting that way. And now they want me to apologize to her and also the rest of the family for my outburst. They also want me to tell her that I didn't mean any of the things that I said to her at dinner and fix this. I have the rest of the day to make up my mind, but they want me to do whatever it is that I have to do before she gets married tomorrow. There is a 1-day gap between the rehearsal dinner and her wedding because some of her friends are going to arrive today and she planned for it ahead, so I kind of lucked out on that front because now I have until the evening to decide what I want to do. Jason thinks that I shouldn't apologize because I was only standing up for him. And she's always been really rude to me, so it's about time that I retaliated, and I have nothing to regret. I personally have also been thinking along the same lines. But she's supposed to get married tomorrow, and I really wouldn't feel good about myself, knowing that I caused somebody to have a mental breakdown right before their wedding day. And most other people from her family believe that I owe her an apology, but that's obviously coming from a biased place. And as much as I hate to admit it, Jason's opinion is also coming from the same place. The only difference is that he's speaking in my favor. So for a truly neutral opinion, I've come to Reddit. Ida for bringing up how my husband helped out his family in the past because my sister-in-law kept making fun of him for being a stay-at-home father now. Update 1. So it's evening time now, and after reading the comments, I have come to the conclusion that I have nothing to apologize for. Jason and I are currently packing our stuff so we can leave because it's going to be really weird if I don't apologize and then I attend her wedding tomorrow. We are going to tell his parents that we're leaving because it'll be really rude if we don't and just pull a disappearing act without bothering to tell anyone. Jason and I talked about this a couple of hours ago, and he says that it's the right thing to do because Janice has always been really insensitive and rude for no reason, and it's about time that she faced some consequences for it. He also told me that it had been getting increasingly difficult for him to put up with his family because of the way they'd been behaving ever since he quit his job. He had expected them to be supportive, but they were far from it and were actively pulling him down and making him feel horrible for wanting to spend time with his daughter. We had always known that his family had a crazy misogynistic attitude towards work and household chores, and we really should have seen this coming. But we wanted to give them a chance to change and unlearn everything. They had that chance and they decided to stick to their old beliefs instead of getting with the times. So now if we want to stop talking to them, it's their own fault for not being supportive of us. We're happy with our lives, and if they can't be happy for us, then we don't want to keep in touch with them. Because we don't need that sort of negative energy around us. And that's how they've been acting for the past few months, constantly negative and critical of us and our life choices. So now we're finally ready to bid adieu to these people. Honestly, Jason and I had only been sticking around out of a sense of obligation, but we can't tolerate this behavior anymore. I have put up with enough disrespect disguised as jokes and concern, and so has Jason. But I think it's very necessary for us to draw a line and let people know that this line is not to be crossed anymore, because we are not going to take it. We teach people how we want to be treated, and we have been setting a really bad example for ourselves, but that ends now. So now, everybody is going to learn how we want to be treated. And if they can't bring themselves to respect us and our choices, then they can stay the heck out of our lives. Update 2. Okay, so Jason and I are at home now. It didn't go well with his parents when we told them that we were not going to apologize and were actually heading back home since we didn't feel comfortable attending the wedding ceremony after what happened. They had obviously been expecting us to suck it up and apologize because they completely freaked out when Jason told them that we were leaving and were not going to attend the ceremony. They started yelling at us and telling us that we couldn't leave because that would raise a lot of questions and they didn't want us to ruin Janice's wedding. Jason's mom told us that we had to be present at the ceremony and that whatever issues we had would just have to be sorted out later. Jason told her that we just weren't comfortable being present at the ceremony because it had become very evident to us that Janice didn't respect us. And neither did anybody else, since they expected us to apologize for merely standing up for ourselves. They'd all been treating us badly ever since Jason quit his job, and we weren't okay with this behavior anymore. So this was us putting our food down because we'd had enough. After we said that, Jason's parents told us that we were being very egoistic and selfish and said that we needed to think about the repercussions of our actions. They said that us not being present at the ceremony, after we had been there for all the other events, would seem very strange. And then the entire day would just become about our fight and would take away the focus from Janice and her wedding. We argued for a bit more, and then Janice herself showed up at the room. She had the room right next to her parents. She had overheard yelling and decided to come to check it out. Once she was there, her parents filled her in and she told us that she was fine with us not coming to the wedding and would actually prefer it that way. She addressed me directly and told me that she didn't have a problem with Jason attending the wedding, but he wouldn't come without me. And I was the last person she wanted there. She called me selfish and vindictive and said that the only reason I ruined her rehearsal dinner was because I wanted to create trouble at her wedding. So then the two of us got into a petty catfight, which I regret because we really could have done without it. But that gave us an excuse to leave without more of a fuss. They didn't try to stop us as we left, and that was a relief because we didn't have it in us to put up an even bigger fight. So she can go ahead with her wedding and Jason, and I wish that it goes well. But we don't want anything to do with her or his parents anymore. We might consider mending our relationship if they apologize, but I don't believe that's going to happen anytime soon. For now, both of us are just relieved to be home. Our daughter had been living with my parents, but we picked her up on our way back home, and Jason is currently playing with her as I type out this update. This is my favorite space, and I don't care what anybody else says about it. Our family is just perfect the way it is. Update 3. Hey, guys. So this update is coming a day after the wedding. We were not there, but we heard that there was a lot of talk about us on the day of the wedding, most of which came from Janice herself. It's ironic that her parents were worried that our absence would lead to a lot of questions from other people and the day would end up becoming more about us and our fight with Janice than about her. But I guess Janice leaned into the idea and started making her wedding day more about us herself. There were a few distant relatives who hadn't been present at the rehearsal dinner to witness my outburst, but they heard all about it from Janice after the ceremony. Apparently, she didn't stop talking about our fight the entire day and was really milking the drama. Good for her, I guess. I can't say I expected any better from her. The only downside of what she did is that now, anybody who isn't too close to the family is reaching out to Jason to ask about the drama. Everybody wants to feel involved and get to the bottom of this. We haven't been entertaining it so far, and I don't think that we will, because we don't want anything to do with his family unless they apologize. And since it doesn't appear to us that they have any intention of apologizing, we're just going to stay out of the drama and let them do their thing. We have tried to be as vague as possible while responding to everybody who is texting Jason because we want to take the high road and not engage. That's only going to lead to more fighting and drama since Janice pretty much lives for it. His family will definitely have a field day if they find out that we have been talking about them behind their backs, even though they were doing the same thing to us. We just don't want to get into it, so we are going to do what we did all these years and ignore everybody.